Hello and welcome to this panel titled The Future of Live Production, Aftermath of COVID-19. I'm Lorenzo Zanni, Head of Insight and Analysis at IABM. Today I'm joined by Jeremy Dujardin, who is CTO of Global Media and Entertainment Services at Tata Communications. Thank you very much, Jeremy, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
We have also Per Lindgren, who is CTO and co-founder at Net Insight. Thank you very much, Per, for being with us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And finally, we have Joshua Limer, who is president at Vista WorldLink. Thanks very much, Josh, for being with us. So today we're going to talk about how things are going to look like in the future and which lasting changes to live productions the pandemic has produced. But let's start from what's happened so far. So I wanted to start from you, Jeremy. Can you tell us how live production models have adapted to this pandemic and which measures have you taken to ensure business continuity in different sectors?
Sure. No, thank you. So, yeah, I mean, certainly in the short term, I mean, we're still in the very, very short term of the impact of COVID, especially in the sense that a lot of the majority of the sports have still yet to turn back on. They're just starting to start up again, as we speak. So it's still a bit early to say exactly how the productions are going to be supported. There's certainly been a lot of activity around planning for production as it relates to sports, and live events, as they come back online. So obviously from just a pure restriction of travel, restriction of people on site, from a safety perspective, there's a tremendous amount of effort to keep as many people away from the actual event as possible. We've been requested across all different sports, to try and look at different ways of remote production and supporting the productions remotely, as well as even as even for the individuals that get on to a location. There's a tremendous amount of requirement to keep those people distant. So even if you look at a traditional on-site production from a that would happen in tight quarters in a production truck, people are looking at even rolling out multiple production trucks just so they can space people out a little bit more. So there's a tremendous amount of planning that's currently happening to try and get make sure that the from a safety and the restriction of travel are accommodated as much as possible.
Great, thanks, Jeremy. Per, what's your view on these about the effects of the pandemic on live production models?
No, I think it has definitely changed the production workflows, and I think accelerated many of the trends we have discussed the last years around remote and distributed production workflows, of course. But also the move towards more open IP and cloud workflows. And at-home production has literally become at-home productions. People are sitting at home and doing the productions, both the hosts and the production crews. In addition, I think with many live sports production gone, what we've seen at Net Insight, we have seen an increase in live enterprise productions. And I think we start to see a harmonization of what we do in live enterprise productions and tier 2 type of sports events for doing the productions. So I think that's something we'll continue to see after the pandemic.
Great. Thanks, Per. And Josh, in terms of your business, can you tell us about the effects of the pandemic and which measures you've taken to ensure business continuity in this period?
Vista WorldLink has been heavily invested in the REMI or at-home production model for quite a few years. And when we launched that initiative, it was more about a volume business where we're seeing this model turn a little bit and pivot to allow more accessibility and safety measures. So where we may have had multiple control rooms lit up to support a variety of concurrent events, Now we're using multiple control rooms to handle one event so that people can be safely distanced and follow social distancing guidelines. So that's been definitely one component. The other component is that we've seen a lot of our customers who may have been a little bit hesitant to try out perhaps some innovative technology and some solutions from a traditional standpoint, exponentially start experimenting quickly in the past 10 weeks. So announcers or hosts or talent literally in their homes, producers in their homes, and technicians perhaps back at the Vista facility, and all working in concert, utilizing different technologies to make that happen. So I think what we're going to see, the byproduct of what we're going to see, is that this technology that maybe was rolling out slowly will be in broadcasts much faster than I think anyone was really expecting, because this has given everyone kind of a free pass to experiment. And I think the consumers at home that we've all been very conscious about and maybe have been a little bit too protective of, have accepted some experimenting to allow there to be content, because obviously in this situation, any content has been better than no content, right? So if there's been a little bit of latency or a little bit of pixelation or whatever, I think consumers, because they're utilizing different video conferencing technology just to interact with friends and family, have a bit better understanding of what these challenges are. And it's a much larger challenge to take some of this technology and bring it to the broadcast level and put it on to some major head ends, right? So I think what we're going to see as a byproduct of this is that even when we somehow return to a semblance of normalcy, some of this prosumer technology will stay on broadcast. Half times where we may be doing a interview utilizing Zoom or Skype or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or whatever your flavor of the week is, right? Will end up, and it's much easier now, and people are more accepting of having more access, right? Even at the celebrity level. So I think where we would used to have to set up a live shot, people would have to travel to a studio, and we would integrate that into a show, and there was a lot of management, a lot of logistics, has become maybe a little bit easier, but you're taking a technology that isn't so stable and controlled as we just saw with my Bluetooth connection, and you're asking to put that onto broadcast going to millions of homes. So that balance I've seen, we've had to exponentially prepare for that quick.
Yeah, interesting the points you make about innovation by necessity, and also about consumer habits, which is interesting because, for example, as a consumer, I've certainly noticed this change. For example, when watching news and people contributing to programs remotely, and I've got used to it, so it makes a lot of sense to me. But I wanted to move on to this innovation by necessity topic, focusing on the remote production as well. Starting from you, Per. Before the pandemic, media companies were looking at remote production models to centralize resources and increase productivity as well. The pandemic has radically changed this picture. In fact, social distancing has forced media companies to implement a decentralized model, as you all mentioned, with personnel distributed across different locations. From this perspective, I wanted to ask you, what do you think are the workflows and production models that will stay with us in the long run, so post-pandemic?
I believe what this has shown us, it's possible to work more remotely and distributed. And to be honest, the technology has been there for a while. It's been in many cases, Josh said, been a culture kind of resistance. And now I think both production companies and content owners have seen the benefits and gotten used to be able to stay at home and be more efficient. So I think a lot of these workflows will stay. I think also things like consumer-generated content and content from home also make a lot of the productions more live, right? It's you really feel something is happening live. I also believe it has shown the need for end-to-end solutions, and we see when you have the content in your home studios or perhaps even in the cloud ecosystems. Also, of course, the distribution becomes a natural part of that. So the end solutions really from production, cloud workflows to distribution and players that can take a bigger responsibility and also educate the market will gain on this long term.
Interesting what you said about end-to-end solution in terms of our research as well, because we've seen an increasing focus on it, although we're seeing broadcasters still focusing a lot on best of breed as well. Jeremy, what's your view on this?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, both what Josh and Per, were saying and alluding to is that, I mean, I think that the days of sending hundreds of people to to an event location for production, are going to be over. I mean, there's already this trend, and this pandemic has basically accelerated that trend. And it's not just about having a single remote facility for people to come together to produce many events, but literally having people distributed, and the long term, maybe those people aren't literally in their homes, but they're in a local facility producing an event alongside with colleagues that might be in other cities around the country or around the world, producing an event that, a single event. Even as we had worked on certain, providing connectivity for certain remote production events where there were centralized remote facilities, broadcasters were still flying talent into that central facility to help them produce the event. Whether that was an editor or a director or a TD. Now those individuals now don't have to travel; they can go to a local facility to help produce that event. And I think it's that distributed nature, and the technology, as Per said, has been there. And this is just showing people that, hey, this works, it works well, and just from a pure cost savings perspective, without having to travel those people, whether to the event or to another central facility, is a big savings and provides a lot more benefit than the perceived risk that people thought there was. And as Josh pointed out, customers or consumers are willing to experience this distributed production. There's really not much of a risk at all.
Yeah. So do you see this centralization of resources when people can come back to a central facility as still important to the remote production model, you think?
Yeah, so that's still important, but I do think that that'll become more distributed as well. So that instead of those people having to come to a central facility, there may be multiple distributed facilities that those people can go to, again, to cut back on travel and to share resources across multiple facilities to do a single production. Great,
thanks, Jeremy. Josh, what's your view on this? You've already said a little bit on it, but do you want to add any points?
Sure. Yeah, I think that the centralized broadcast facility is interesting because it allows people to have a variety of different resources under one roof. I think that has been really beneficial during this really challenging times. I say this to Jeremy all the time. The Vista production side of what we do is like the on-ramp into the facility. And then inside the facility, there's always a variety of different production resources like post-production, digital archiving, and distribution. So there really has never been a time in history of our industry where digital archiving has proven its return on investment so much. And a lot of what we've been keeping ourselves busy over the past 10, 11 weeks at Vista is that our clients that use our facility normally to produce events are now using us to creatively repurpose their archived content. So the fact that we do have this amazing archive of footage that spans multiple decades, we're able to repurpose that and redistribute it. But I can have a producer who's working from New York accessing the archive that's in South Florida, but it's really in a cloud that Jeremy manages for us. and we can have editors really anywhere accessing this, putting it together, and then the centralized broadcast facility that is Vista can then redistribute it to the world. So those creative ways that it's not, we're not reinventing the wheel. It's just, again, I think that it's the necessity of people getting comfortable with innovative technology, that there just has been a way that everyone's been used to operating. And this pandemic has somewhat put an axe to that, and has forced people to think of different workflows. And I think we can see the byproduct is a lot of creativity and people coming out of their going to comfort zones that they may not have been before, and pushed the envelope during the past few weeks. So it's been interesting to see how people have used content and developed and produced content in these past few weeks.
Interesting. Great. Thanks, Josh. Very interesting what you said about creating new innovation and leveraging archives as well, which is very much consistent with our research, which shows that is a major area of focus for media companies at the moment. I wanted to ask you another question, Josh. Can you tell us a little bit more about Vista's business, the challenges you've experienced, and how you've addressed them in this period, and how do you see that developing in the next few years? And if you can tell us a little bit more about this digital archiving, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, I think everyone's dealt with these challenges, especially if you're in the live event, not just sports side, but live events business, right? Like we all kind of, our livelihood is tethered to large social gathering events in which people are either being at concerts, some sort of entertainment, or live sporting event. And when everyone started staying at home, that business obviously wasn't there, and that is a huge challenge. So what we did was we obviously communicated with our customers. What are your needs? Some of our large sports customers, like Major League Soccer, we're their official library, and we have content going back to 1996. So they had a really immediate plan of leveraging their library. It was their 25th anniversary of their league, unfortunately, and they just only played about 2 weeks before the pandemic hit, and they suspended their season at that time. So for them, it was all about the archive. Get the archive, repurpose it, reintegrate content, put fresh graphic packages on old content, and get that out there to their fans. And that was really interesting. And then another customer of ours, the United Soccer League, they found an interesting way to interact with their customers by creating an esports tournament around Rocket League, which is a game. And they had a representative of every single one of their teams. It was potentially a player, a coach, a general manager, or a really big supporter of their club. And they made a 64-game Rocket League tournament that was completely produced by Vista remotely. So we had a producer in Orlando, an executive producer in Fort Lauderdale. We had people playing the game all over the world coming back into Vista. We assembled and did all the production and remotely and from people's houses, and we redistributed it. And 64 matches of this game aired on ESPN and was completely produced outside of the Vista plant, if you will, and then was redistributed out through the facility. So we definitely stayed busy during the pandemic. And I think the other thing that was interesting was different types of content funneled into our facility. So we were actually even doing like enterprise level communication for large companies, pharmaceutical companies, interviewing doctors that had to do medical conferences. Some of them were in Europe, some are in the United States, and literally capturing that content through different video conferencing platforms, assembling it, and then distributing it out either to the web or through traditional broadcasts. So we definitely stayed busy during this time.
Great, thanks, Josh. Great to hear that you've been busy as well. Jeremy, I want to move to another topic still in production, because another hot topic in production is security, which is a major area of focus for media companies, of course. As this accelerated move to remote production models influenced the media companies' security strategy, and are there any other areas they are focusing on at the moment to make this transition to remote production models as smooth as possible?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, so as I think all of us have mentioned, I mean, remote production has been being used and leveraged for a number of years prior to the pandemic. So all the policies and procedures around making sure that philosophy of production is secure has been more or less ironed out, and ensuring you have either private connectivity back to your remote production facility. The facility itself needs to maintain a certain level of standards and adhere to various security measures both from a physical as well as an IT based security, and all of those layers of security have to be in place. One of the interesting things that has come out of the pandemic is a rush to even more cloud-based production, as Josh was mentioning, having content produced remotely, even outside of a central facility, is a relatively new area that people have been embarking on because of necessity. And there are a lot of security measures that have to be taken to make sure that that content is safe and secure. Making sure that there's proper encryption or VPNs that are, if you're leveraging the internet to get your feeds out, ensuring that the content as it's coming into either the cloud or the facility, is secured, with the proper layer, multiple firewall layers that would be required to make sure that people can't get in and access that content. But I think the foundation of remote production has been such that a lot of those measures and standards of practice have been based established from a foundational perspective. So it's been fairly easy to build on that and make sure that people can embark on these new endeavors without any real risk.
Great, thanks, Jeremy. So it's been smooth so far. Per, what's your view on this?
I mean, content security has always been key for content owners, and for us, always a key design criteria. But I think with the move to IP and cloud-based workflows that Jeremy mentioned, this becomes even more important. We just recently acquired a company called Apiri that has developed several virtual strong security software apps, and that was key in that acquisition, actually. We're also adding a lot of new features like encryption that we traditionally just had for our internet contribution products, but we're adding it to all platforms, and also watermarking solutions. So I think it's a matter of working on the end-to-end solutions, like Jeremy said, and have the different security options end-to-end.
Great, thanks, Per. Josh, what's your view on security, and did you have any challenges with regards to moving to remote production models?
Well, we rely on Jeremy's ability to protect us, and also through Jeremy, HER's organization helps in that as well, because we certainly use a bunch of Tata and then Insight technology to execute our workflows. But it's not just the security of the content, it's the security of the people, right? I think that's something that's been really interesting as well. So we have invested significantly because we are a centralized broadcast facility, and we had to, in this situation, really work with partners, work with competitors, work with customers to leverage the best minds in our industry and discuss how people are doing things, right? And share trade secrets and whatnot, because ultimately, how do we keep people safe while they have to work, and that's a huge thing, and it's ongoing, and and there's weekly meetings and whatnot throughout the industry with people. And it's actually, I think that that is kind of a silver lining, perhaps, where everyone is kind of working together to try to get back to a semblance of normalcy and get back to what we do well and create content and tell stories. But it has been various protocols of screening and testing and creating barriers within control rooms and creating more ways to sanitize equipment and to clean equipment. And you forget in production, and Jeremy said this in the beginning of the conversation, even in a 53-foot truck, you put a lot of people in a 53-foot truck. In a facility, you have a lot of people working and touching equipment and sharing stuff like headsets and microphones and whatnot. And all of those things that, were just commonplace, just a few months ago. Now it's very, top of mind of how do we protect people and how do we get back to work. And obviously there's a hunger for content and people want to produce content, people want sports to come back. So to do that the right way and to do it the smart way has been also a major challenge. Great.
You mentioned securing people, which is interesting. In terms of and you mentioned also the partnership with Tata, with Jeremy. So Josh and Jeremy, can you tell us a little bit about your strategic partnerships and what are your plans going forward as well, given this pandemic?
Sure. Yeah. So from our perspective, we look at Vista as our production partner. When we have opportunities or things that we need to bring in we have a broadcaster that wants to we're obviously as a telecommunications provider and a media services provider, very focused on the connectivity and the transmission of content. And Vista WorldLink is a world-renowned production company with the capability to produce large-scale events and at a high volume. So when we have opportunities from a broadcaster or a content owner that needs to produce those events, we work closely with Vista to support that. Our focus is providing that seamless, high quality, low latency, transmission to get the camera feeds back to Vista's facility, or to help provide various cloud-based services to help Vista, in enhancing their production capabilities.
Thanks. Josh, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. Tata's been a major partner for us as we pivoted into this Remy at home production model. And I was talking to some colleagues a few weeks ago, and they were talking to me about how challenging it's been to kind of get into this model and how do you do X, Y, or Z and blah blah blah. And I was like, it's crazy. We've been doing this since in such a heavy volume since 2017. And I was talking to my chief engineer. It's like, well, with Net Insight and Tata, together, that's been such a great 1-2 punch. And we've been very innovative. Where I was on a panel where they're talking about how challenging it was to keep cameras synchronized and how to time everything properly and everything. It's like it's pretty amazing. We've kind of had this model set for so many years, and we're kind of so ahead of that curve because of the innovation that Jeremy and I literally kind of drew up on the back of a napkin about 4 or 5 years ago. And since that meeting, we've probably done I don't know, 5,000-6,000 events together using the model. And Per probably doesn't even realize how much volume has also gone through the Net Insight infrastructure as well. So that has been amazing, and that technology has allowed us to take various workflows and systems, right, and put it on that network and create a large volume. And I said this earlier. In the beginning, when we were building this in 2015, 2016, and getting prepared for the big pivot in 2017, it was about volume. How can we do a significant amount of concurrent events at a time? And now it's like that foundation that we built has allowed us to stay relevant during these challenges, but also has allowed our customers that have invested and believed in this concept all those years ago to be ahead of the curve, because they're literally, we're ready to go. You know, we're not building anything. We really have it built, and it's been established. And now we're kind of adding and enhancing it to do even more. So that's kind of our story.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Per, can you tell us about your strategic partnership with Tata as well?
No, absolutely. I mean, our industry is in fast transformation, and it just becomes much more important to work very closely with customers and work together at end-to-end solutions that we talked about in the beginning, where it's possible to make a big difference right now. I think that inside Tata had the same idea that it's not really just customer-supplier relationships. It's actually a partnership that you work together to create the best solutions for the end customers. And that spirit, I think, is key. And I also think with the transformation, of course, local content has always been important, but with the move to IP and OTT distribution and workflows, content is going global. And with Tata's global footprint and perhaps one of the biggest IP networks in the world, I think that's been very key, and that opens up possibilities, also moving into IP and cloud, both contribution and distribution, to create those end-to-end workflows. And I think that in the end will be extremely important.
Great. Thanks, Per, the point you made about the industry going global as well. So, Jeremy, can you tell us about this partnership as well? So the collaboration on the supply side of the industry is becoming increasingly important in this period.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so from our perspective, I mean, we've been providing media services for over 10 years. You know, and from the beginning, you know, we've relied on NetInsight as a key partner to help us provide those transmission services. And they've been a really great partner that's kept up with the technology and always been very forward thinking and been able to allow us to help transition to these new types of services, as Per mentioned, going from you know, the MSR platform, which is the core switches, to increasing capacity with the 100 gig network that's currently being deployed, leveraging the NetInsight switches, to now leveraging the Nimbra Edge platform for internet-based delivery and cloud-based services. You know, NetInsight has really been a key foundational partner for us to support the next generation services as we go forward.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks very much, everyone. Great to finish on collaboration as well. Thanks very much for being with us today, and for all the insights you provided on the future of live production.